Hello. Today I want to show you the Doepfer A-111-6 miniature synthesizer voice module. Now, I don't know if you know about this little brand called Doepfer, but they're making a big old splash on the Eurorack scene of late. It seems with slim, interesting modules which you can't quite get anywhere else. Doepfer stuff is really well made, really well considered. So here we are. Let's talk more about some Doepfer stuff. Now, be minded that I didn't buy this, but received it from Doepfer's distributors. As I said, I would show it off to you. Now, I did this because I am genuinely curious whether this, which on the face of it looks basically like a tiny SH-101 in a ludicrously small 10 HP, 50.5mm deep package, could be a useful ally in my various live systems, especially as a bass voice. And that's what I'm testing it as here. So as a quick bird's eye overview, what is it? What do you get in it? Well, in one sentence, it is a simple but complete analog synthesizer in 10 HP. Or HP, to annoy people who don't understand that the English language evolves. You have one freely tunable oscillator that can go from 32 Hz to 16 kHz, but will track 1 volt per octave up to 4 kHz. That's the highest C on a keyboard, I believe. There's a blendable square suboctave generator, a 24 decibel filter. There are selectable saw, square and triangle waveforms for the oscillator, and there is PWM for Nick on the square. There are 2 FM inputs for the filter. One has a mod knob and the other does not. And using that second VCF FM input, apparently you can get it to track almost 1 volt per octave if you've got a self-resonating filter, which it is. And it has an envelope generator. And the envelope generator has a few interesting tricks up its sleeve because it's actually, depending on how you switch it, an ADSR or an AR or an AD, depending on the switch again. In ADSR mode, the S sustain is fixed to 50%, and there is a dedicated attack knob, and there is this knob which controls both decay and release at once, like on a Mini Moog. Attack is 1 millisecond to 5 seconds in length, but you can increase it with this CVT input here, which is a control voltage input for the envelope, and which you can control what that does with a jumper on the back. So the control voltage input can change decay and release at once, or it can change attack at once, or it can change all of the parameters of the envelope at once. Pretty cool. I have it set to control decay release at the moment. There is also a jumper to control the polarity of that input, whether it applies positively or negatively. The oscillator has a octave up and down switch and a 0. Very big fan of that. Love having octave switches on oscillators for that roll and D fun. And now I do feel duty-bound to point out, despite the fact this is a demo, not a review, that this is as small as it looks. This is small. So it is a serious consideration for a live situation. It's actually something that Doepfer themselves say on the website for the 1116. The controls are arranged a little closer than on standard modules. The module is primarily intended for applications where little space is available. So you know, it is entirely possible to nudge the tune knob while you're adjusting the mod knob if you're not careful. Now, of course, there are workarounds for things like that because you've got CV inputs, so you could use external modules to modulate things for you, you know, control the filter perhaps, and you could use something like an LS1 light strip to do that because there is an FM input for the filter, you know, or you could just try and pull the knobs off, which I've done with the tune knob on some of the modules just to make sure it wasn't possible for you to knock it. Or you could just be careful. But do bear in mind that obviously it is small. So using it in a live situation and going completely haywire with it, it is going to be fiddly. There's no way around that, but it does a lot. And even if you added other modules to it, I think it's fair enough to say you'd be saving space with this versus using separate modules, separate individual oscillators, envelopes, filters, and all that jazz. Now, what it does not have are LFOs. There are no LFOs on board. So if you want to modulate the PWM, you need to use an external LFO to do that. And I've got DivKids Oct here, which I'm feeding in. So I can modulate that and other parameters to my heart's content. But the real acid test is, how does it sound doing acid? So let's actually get this fired up and we'll listen first to the basic innate tone. T? Okay. Oh, no, I'll have it. Thanks. So the way that you choose oscillator shapes on here is a little bit weird because it is so compact, and basically the square wave is always mixed in and audible, and for the square wave to go away you have to completely crush the pulse width modulation on it. I just did a video on pulse width modulation if you're curious, but if I increase this, we will hear the square wave because I have the wave set to off. If I completely squish out the pulse wave and just flip it up to here, we hear the saw. Tuning. Down to the triangle. You can actually change the range of the VCO dial here with a jumper on the back. I think at the highest setting you can make it 2.5 octaves for the sweep. I think it's just 1 octave on here at the moment. So, saw, triangle, and then in the middle, off, but when you increase the pulse width mod, the square appears. So if you want to pulse width modulate the square, we apply an LFO into mod and we turn up the mod knob. There you go. You can trim PW, pulse width, reduce the amount or increase the amount. Do too much and it will disappear. Sounds pretty good. At the moment we're just hearing the basic oscillator and not the sub-osc because the balance knob is completely anti-clockwise. If we turn it to the right, you then hear the sub-oct. That's the sub-octave generator. And somewhere in the middle is the two together. Nice. And we can octave shift up. Nice. You know. Ooh. And then back to just the basic oscillator by itself. And then if I take the mod off and just completely crush it out of existence, flip this, we get the saw plus the sub. So the waves that are built in are very basic, but they're the kind of core ones. Triangle, saw, and the square. Now, the curious thing is that you can kind of engage the other waveforms whilst you have the saw being active, and it creates this kind of interesting compound effect. And I'm actually genuinely not sure what's happening here, but there's a kind of odd compound effect. I think it is just blending them together, but there is a kind of interesting effect. They kind of mush together. And then, of course, you can apply, with the balance knob, the sub-octave generator. And that's when we start to get into the filter. So despite the simplicity of what's available here, there is a lot to be done. And of course, you can modulate the pulse width in lots of different ways with lots of different sources and things. So stuff to be done there. Now, the filter. So if we just get the saw going, for example, I'll just give you a basic sweep. That's fully open. And then some resonance. Sorry that I'm kind of covering this up. It's quite hard not to. Yeah, that lovely like harmonics getting picked out. So 24 dB and just a very classic sound, but with high resonance. Here beyond like 6 PM. Well, 2 PM, but 6 on the settings. So we really do start to get quite intense stuff going on, and if I apply some LFO to that, bit of Daft Punk going on, it's quite an intense sound that it's making. So I'm adding a little bit of reverb delay from mimeophone, bit of musical context. Quite sort of underworldy. I like that. If there was something that this started to make me think of, it's partially Underworld, but more kind of electro, I have to say. So if I was to then go, so we've got the envelope going on here now. Now, so I am currently gating it from the music thing, Turing Machine's pulses output. And we've got it in AD mode. There is the ADSR, where the decay and the release are being shared by this knob. AR mode. It's kind of harder to hear the differences when we're using sequence things. It would be more obvious if we're playing this with the keyboard. But just know that you can get a nice kind of plucky thing on with the AD mode that responds well to being sequenced. And you can hear in this default mode, the envelope is defaulted to control the filter depending on the FM knob. That changes when I apply something into the into the VCM, the FM one here. So now that is being controlled by the LFO. We get sort of into Deepsea territory. It just kind of lends itself to that. It's got this kind of squeaky, cheeky sort of like vibe to it. It's not like a kind of mini Moog, and it's not like an MS-20, and it's also not like an SH-101, I wouldn't say. Not in my playing so far. So if we then get it to be controlled by things, now I have somewhere got this. So now it is being controlled by the Turing machine. So we get a bit of a kind of musical example. That's the sequence in its fullness. But the Turing machine doesn't output a gate for every 16th note in every note that comes out. Nice. So then, if I stick this on off, we've got our square. Let's pulse width modulate it. Now let's get the filter being modulated by the envelope in a nice kind of way. Nice. Octave shifting up and down. Nice. Nice. Over to the sub-octave generator. Back over to the inbuilt, which is up high on octave +1. You can shift it back down. It's a nice performance effect. And then of course they can blend back over. Now I have got somewhere here, I've got the volts output of the Turing machine. Let's use that. So that is now going to modulate the filter in addition to the envelope. So we get a really nicely heavily modulated filter, but we're still with envelope modulation occurring. That's the nice thing about having the 2 FM inputs, that VCF FM2 just is separate to this. And if I turn up these, it'll modulate it more. Nice. Apply some pulse width modulation to that. Now, there is another type of modulation you can do, which is FM. Very cheeky. So that's modulating the VCO's pitch, and in this case it creates vibrato. See here, it's got this like very sort of sweet kind of sweet cheeky sound. I think that's kind of how I would describe it. Like, it's not like a gnarly voice just by itself, but this is modular, my dear, so of course you can apply any number of distortion drives or other things that you would want to this, and it is capable of huge amounts of bass if you let it rip. And then it's also capable of this kind of very sing-songy thing. The filter is very kind of like... I don't know, it's just got this kind of very like sing-songy resonance, which is just a cool thing by itself. You know, that's something that you can incorporate into a set. So that's a little loop from before. So you're hearing kind of two layers of the miniature synthesizer voice. Fade that down. Now, there is another thing we can do, which is we can use external sources and feed it into the voice. So this balance control, which on one side is the oscillator, on the other side is the sub-octave generator. If I feed something into X'd in here, it will replace the sub-octave. And my dear friend, the PLAITS. So that's just PLAITS. Because I'm always interested in an analog voice where you can feed in something else, like some kind of odd digital voice, like a Rings or PLAITS, or any number of like weird squiggly digital sounds. Because then you get to blend it with the built-in voice, not in tune. Watch that knob. Then you get a more complex voice. Nice. Oh, that's cheeky. Just the volts, which is going to change the modulation to the filter. Now there is a gain knob, which just applies gain to the voice, so you can use it as a filter and sort of like have it constantly open. You can use it to kind of open up the voice more and drive it. See my techniques here where I'm like handing over the little dial. You're going to learn how to work with such a small little tiny module. I should say, by the way, that the knobs feel really solid. I mean, like severely solid. These are like unmovable. I think they must be bolted to the panel. They are definitely bolted to the panel. Yes, I can see the nuts, and they are solid, and they're like very kind of reassuring. So, you know, despite their smallness, they're also rubberized as well, which is nice. So you kind of, I don't know, it's the best that they could possibly be whilst also being so small. I think it's fair enough to say. So that's the PLAITS and the voice's own oscillator in tandem. Knock that down an octave, turn this into a sub-octave generator. Oh, that's good. Nice. Oh, that's good. By the way, you can hear there's noises coming from the noise plethora and the grids. But the sequence is all this and PLAITS, plus some MFI. Nice. Ace.